Could it be, welcome back, could it be that we have finally reached the tipping point with wretched wokeness? This outrageous story you're about to hear certainly makes a powerful case that we are. An assistant professor at Old Dominion University in Virginia attempting to normalize, yes, normalize pedophilia, advocating we destigmatize and rebrand these deeply sick members of society.
I use the term minor attracted person, or MAP, in the title and throughout the book for multiple reasons. First of all, because I think it's important to use terminology for groups that members of that group want others to use for them. And MAP advocacy groups like Before You Act have advocated for use of the term MAP. They've advocated for it primarily because it's less stigmatizing than other terms like pedophile. A lot of people, when they hear the term pedophile, they automatically assume that it means a sex offender. And that isn't true, and it leads to a lot of misconceptions about attractions toward minors.
How could a sex offender not be a pedophile? I just don't get that.
All right, well, a proposal is making its way through the state legislature to establish a common law marriage between, quote, one man and one woman. State Capitol reporter Gerald Harris is hearing from the bill's sponsor. He looks at the purpose of the bill and why opponents are worried that it would eliminate an important age requirement for marriage.
It's a common law marriage bill that's raising some questions. Here's how the bill's sponsor describes a law being considered that would add a new marriage option for Tennesseans.
So all this bill does is give an alternative form of marriage for those pastors and other individuals who have a conscientious objection to the current pathway to marriage in our law.
But missing from the bill are age requirements, opening the door for possible child marriages, something the bill sponsor,
There is not an explicit age limit.
acknowledged during a Children and Family Affairs subcommittee multiple times.
So what in your legislation would stop a 16-year-old from going down with someone else to the courthouse and getting this done, since there's no age restrictions within your law?
Again, I believe the way this legislation would be construed with the courts and based on the common law pathway, I think it would be construed that minors would not be able to enter into this.
So we're going to take the assumption that they would not include minors in this.
Well, everything on every bill up here, there's a bit of an assumption because we never know what court will say what on anything.
Representative Mike Stewart, a Democrat who sits on the subcommittee the bill passed out of, says he doesn't understand the motivation. He adds it could open up the possibility to cover up child sex abuse.
It should not be there as basically a get-out-of-jail-free card for people who are basically committing statutory rape. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. So that's another reason why this terrible bill should be eliminated.
In Asheville, Gerald Harris.
Care more about the children than you do about protecting the finances of the sex industry and the sex establishment.
Yes, Judah. Right, the sex industry. Tell me about this sex industry.
Dr. Reisman has for years argued against the harmful impact of the sex industry on America's children. Many of the PhDs who teach in our universities have not only been associated with the Journal of Pedophilia, but have also served as the board members for pornographic magazines like Penthouse Forum. These are the people who have designed the programs for sex education in America. Because Kinsey chose to define the pain and suffering of abused children as orgasm, he then argued that children were sexual from birth and should be taught about having sex as soon as possible. While most who promote the programs probably don't know it, this thinking is what lies behind the idea of teaching sex education to kindergartners.
I remember him using this in his campaign against me, saying Barack Obama supports teaching sex education to kindergartners. And, you know, which I didn't know what to tell him. But it's the right thing to do. To provide age-appropriate sex education, science-based sex education, science-based sex education in the schools.
Remember that this science-based sex education begins with the so-called scientific data gathered by Kinsey's pedophiles and recorded by him in his sex reports, something that Kinsey's followers continue to insist is relevant in teaching our children today.
These specific findings about these children are totally irrelevant to modern sex education.
Consider again this image of a teacher showing what appears to be 6- and 7-year-old girls how to use a condom. Who will this 7-year-old be using a condom with? When you consider that the PhDs who have designed these programs openly support the pedophile philosophy, we can only wonder, is sex education really intended to protect America's children, or to condition them for seduction at the hands of a child molester?
Today, we will sign HB 1557, the Parents' Rights in Education Bill. Parents have a fundamental role in the education, health care, and well-being of their children. We will not move from that. I don't care what corporate media outlets say. I don't care what Hollywood says. I don't care what big corporations say. Here I stand. I'm not backing down. We will make sure that parents can send their kids to school to get an education, not an indoctrination. These leftist politicians, corporate media outlets, some of these activist groups, they actually have read the bill. And they're sloganeering because they don't want to admit that they support a lot of the things that we're providing protections against. For example, they support sexualizing kids in kindergarten. They support injecting woke gender ideology into second-grade classrooms. They support enabling schools to, quote, transition students to a, quote, different gender without the knowledge of the parent, much less without the parent's consent. And so what they're doing with these slogans and these narratives is they are trying to camouflage their true intentions. They know, in every single poll that's been done that actually reads the language in the bill, will find overwhelmingly Americans oppose injecting this type of material into the classroom of young kids. Americans support the right of parents to be informed and to be able to withhold consent over certain types of medical treatments in school. So they know that, and so that's why they're resorting to some of the narratives. And it hasn't worked, but let's just be clear. It's not just all of them have not read the bill. Many have not. Many have, and many of them want to see this type of stuff in our schools. So be very, very careful when you see that. And someone told me that there's even people in Hollywood that are opposed, to providing protections for parents and enforcing parents' rights. You know, the one thing I'll say about that is, if the people who held up degenerates like Harvey Weinstein up as exemplars and as heroes and as all that, if those are the types of people that are opposing us on parents' rights, I wear that like a badge of honor.